Okay. All right. So, how I do podcasts now is that we just start, I add an intro at some point, but we can just talk about whatever. So, let's start with just hanging out. Do you have
Sounds
some coffee or some tea
I
or
do.
something? Okay,
Right
good.
here.
I don't know if you can see it, but
Very nice. Yep, it's in my growth takes time mug. So
I love that. I love that. So, so Chris, do you want to introduce yourself just a little bit? You don't have to go into a whole lot. Just tell us who you are.
you know, I'm a lot of things. Uh, personally, I'm a husband, a father, a veteran, and a few other things as too. But those are labels. But I try to think of myself as a creative and kind person, first and foremost. But yeah, and then professionally, I'm a leadership guide. So. Uh, Yeah, that's not many people use the term guide, but I prefer to coaching because of my approach. Basically, I think a lot of people have their own answers to where they need to grow, what they want to do. They just need somebody to kind of walk with them, offer a bit of a different perspective on how to get there, help them navigate their terrain, that sort of thing. Um, but I don't have all the answers. I don't think everybody does. So and that's what I think of when I think of a coach. So I think of being like, make this play, go do that. There is a time and place for that. I'm not knocking that at all. It's just not my approach, and it's not really what I do. I try to uh, help leaders cultivate and develop themselves rather than tell them how to be better managers. That's the way I see it.
hmm And I love that. And that's what resonates so much with me is your authenticity, that you realize you don't have all the answers. Neither do I. My cat's running around. I don't know if you can see. Um, so yeah, we don't have all the answers, but we can propel each other forward through listening and helping each other and sharing when we feel stuck. And, it's about, and I know it's said a lot, but really it is about growing together. And maybe if
Mhm.
us are a few steps ahead and we pull the other up, you often talk about, and I love the dandelion leaders,
Yeah.
and that concept, and your recent article, which I know you said you thought was too long, but I think, and I had this idea actually while I was getting ready for our call. I wonder about, have you thought about writing a white paper on these
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have. So I do have an academic background. I have a multifaceted background, academic being one component of it. So I'm very comfortable with that very long form, in-depth type of writing. And
Mm-hmm.
when I first started Cultivar last year and started putting out newsletters on Substack, I actually had the harebrained idea that I would be able to put out a white paper a month.
Oh, that sounds
And
like me. I do
I don't
stuff like that.
Yeah. I have yet to put out what I consider a white paper. Um, but
hmm
I like long form if it's written well. I'm not saying I'm the best writer, but if if it tickles your brain, so to speak, in such a way that it continues to draw you in, and the length doesn't matter, kind of like a 2 hour movie that's written and directed well. You go through it and you don't even realize that that it is that long. And so for me,
hmm
I'm not saying that all of my long form newsletters are like that, but I've read several newsletter segments, or even on LinkedIn, seen some carousels that are even longer than the 47-page one that I did on the article you're talking about. And
hmm
yeah, I can tell they're a bit longer, but I'm getting something out of going through it. So
Yes.
I do a lot of shorter newsletters, the most part, more often. But I just hope that gives a little bit of insight, a little trust with the people that are reading. That when I do put out something that's 5,000 plus words, they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think you're right that writing longer posts carousels or whatnot, as long as it's engaging and interesting, it can, people might, just follow along like an amazing story, an amazing game. There are some games I can't stop playing them
Yeah.
because, they're just so interesting. And some that are like, oh, it's like, it feels like work playing with
Mm.
this game. Why am I playing this game?
Yeah.
Or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, uh, there's a game I played when I was in high school, and I think it was called Fable, and
Hmm.
the game itself was fun, but there's an aspect like if you want to make money, you could do different tasks, and it's just the same repetitive thing over and over and over and over and over. And I know you've talked about that with like how you feel about that with like performing to the algorithm and writing posts, like doing all the little things. There is a time and a place for that, but the stuff that I find interesting, talking about the game analogy, is you're playing, like a Bethesda game like Skyrim or Fallout, and it's like you're running around doing your thing, but you see there's a little marker over there, like something. Wonder what that is. And I've noticed that that's a bit of the stream of consciousness I have at times when it comes to idea exploration, talking about authenticity and leadership, or even writing. It's like I'll have an idea, and then as I'm exploring it, I'll see something tangentially related, and that's worth bringing in. And next thing you know, I have like 5 different tangent side quests that I have to check myself. Like, does this actually flow together, or am I the only one that can see it?
Right.
So
Yes. And we're doing this for Neurospicy Voices, actually. So that totally applies. How do we manage? Because the side quests can be interesting,
mhm.
and I find that. And I don't know, I think others do too, because often I think people are entertained as long as we go back to the original point, and somehow tie the side quest into it. Now, Skyrim and Fallout, I love those games, but I could end up spending my whole life in those games
Oh
with
yeah,
all the side quests. And, you know, I
yeah,
have in the very long ago past.
oh yeah. Same here. Like I definitely spent several years, both in my early 20s, devoting to playing Skyrim and never finishing the main quest.
Uh-huh. Yes, that is me 100 million%. Anyway, I never did actually finish it. Just
Really?
saying.
Oh, and I'll go back and to figure that out.
I know. Actually, I'm going through Fallout and trying to mainly just do the main quests. Anyway, again,
Yeah.
tangent. Um, so yes, so writing, and then you have the 5 tangents. How do you find that you're able to kind of build the balance and maintain your focus, and what
Yeah.
works for you, would you say?
Um, so you mean like as far as like making sure all the tangents are related and all
Mm-hmm.
that? So I've been very lucky in my experience in my life to have worked in some very disparate industries. I've been in the military. I've been in the craft beer industry. I've been
Hmm.
in academia, um, being an instructor, as well as doing open source research projects for the State Department. And then I'm in the private sector doing like people operations, HR type stuff. Um, Through all of that, I was able to collect stories, both of my own and other people, and I was able to see the same patterns. And so, kind of going on with like the Skyrim side quest thing, yeah, I was tangent here, tangent there, but I could see the pattern to these different stories, these different experiences. Um, and so that's kind of the way I try to incorporate it in, is that if the reader's willing to stick with me to the end. I
Mm.
wrote a piece last year called "The Myth of Procedure Over Process," and I talked about counterinsurgency, like strategy wise, and then I talked about um, the rap music industry, and then I talked about the plot of a character in a Studio A24 movie. Different industries completely, but the undercurrent from all those things pinned together. And so that's kind of what I try to do with linking the tangents, is find the undercurrents from everything that link together. And then the whole reason I bring in all these different perspectives is because I know not everybody's going to not everybody's going to care about counterinsurgency or be interested or know the terms. Same
Mhm.
thing with business, same thing with rap music or with A24 movies. But there'll be some component that will probably click and link. And then if they're willing to look at the other perspectives, they might start to see how all those tangents and side quests relate together, because it's not about the side quests themselves. It's about what you're getting out of doing that side quest, that journey of exploration, of, you know, figuring out who you are in the process of those side quests. I mean, because if you think
Leveling
about,
up.
yeah, exactly. Leveling up, because a lot of times if you just go straight for the main quest line, right, you can do that. But if you do it and don't do any, like, say it's a brand new game, and you go to try to do the main quest, you're gonna have the prescribed natural way of this is hard and this is not, this is how you do it and all that and the other. And that's kind of what the game developers want to a degree. Um,
Mhm.
Translate that over. That's kind of what society wants you to do, as far as like, this is the way to achieve success. This is the way to play the game. It's like, you can, or you can go do 70 side quests and level up and get a crossbow that can one shot an elder dragon, and then go and start the main quest and run into your first dragon, and it's no problem. Um,
Mhm.
Point being is that there's a lot of different ways to do stuff. Um, so it's worth pursuing those side quests, those tangents. And I now completely derailed myself talking about going from the writing. But yeah, that's essentially it. Is finding the rabbit holes that are that you want to pursue, that you want to look down, but then figuring out what aspects of those will interest other people that do link together, and then write in a way that shows them, takes them along, and figures out how to do that.
Yeah, it sounds
So
like you're teaching problem awareness, which is something I've been writing a lot about, that often us coaches, or whatever we want to call ourselves, a guide, mentor, leader,
yeah,
um, we people, seeking out maybe coaching, often they don't know that they need coaching, and some of the difficulty around, or again, just words, whatever you want to call it, some of the difficulty I think is the problem awareness. People don't know they need the help. And you writing these excellent, like that, the creativity is the new commons. And I'm going to try to link your articles, but it was just beautiful. It was well written and interesting. And yes, there were maybe a few side tangents, but you relate them back. And I think that's beautiful. I love that kind of writing. You
I
know,
appreciate
yeah, the AI is not going to write like that. It misses the what does Joseph Robertson call it? The, like, the build up. He doesn't call it that, but
it.
the build up of where we're going with the story or the storytelling or whatnot. That's how we set ourselves apart
Yeah,
from AI. And I write a lot too about AI as a tool, not writing for us. Um, anyway, I'm doing a side tangent right now. Relaying this back though, your article, even though it was long, was really great. And it had so many interesting components, even about AI and the social media spiral.
yeah,
And, I actually drew from that article to write my recent chapter, a little bit of it, um, because it was so inspiring and interesting. So I think. I think the side quests, as long as we don't spend all the time in the side quests,
yeah,
we got to find balance,
yeah,
balance in the side quests.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing, is don't mistake the side quest for the main quest, right? The side quests are where you get your personal development. The main quest is where you get your, we can say, success, your stability, things
Mhm.
like that. You know, the main quest is how you get through life, um, as in like the technical, but the side quests are where you figure out who you are and how you want to move through life, how you want to attack the main quest.
Ooh, that's good, because actually that relates to what happened with me. Me finding my brand got stuck in side quests, but that's how I found myself.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's a whole thing. It relates. Anyway,
Well, no,
I love that. Back to, let's see. Um, what should we talk about? I love this because we're talking about games and side quests. I love all the stuff in Neuro Spicy Voices. So we're talking about focusing and making sure we get back to the original point, but that, yes, we don't get stuck in side quests. We somehow use them to help drive us forward. Um, you also talked about society wants us to play a sort of game, but Scott Perry actually often talks about playing our own game, and it sounds like you're playing your own game. How do you do that, would you say?
I mean, I haven't always done that. I'll be completely honest. I've definitely tried to play society's game and all that stuff. And also too, I want to make it clear that if people want to play society's game, as we're calling it, it's absolutely fine.
Sure,
I know that some people feel like judgment because they're not willing to, we're both entrepreneurs. Not everybody's willing to do that. That's absolutely fine.
sure.
It's and don't be somebody that you're not. But for me, um, as far as playing my own game, I've always like ever since I was a kid, I've loved finding loopholes. I've loved
Mm,
kind of like I call it soft rebelling, pushing back. I mean, I was a pretty good kid, but I like just find ways that I could, claim ownership of things and have fun and be creative and smart and all that stuff. And as I got older, that just kind of, you know, manifested itself in the workplace. When I was in the military, I got to do some really fun things. One of them was I had to pretend to be. I was on and led teams of opposing force guys, meaning that within our unit or for other units, we would pretend to be the bad guys. But we knew our own doctrine of how we were supposed to do things. Respond to threats, to do that and the other. But my job was to pretend to be the bad guy that didn't play by those rules
right.
and break that doctrine. And so that's kind of where I started to get that translating from what I like to do as a kid and a teenager to professionally, finding loopholes and breaking doctrine. And that's just, to kind of cut it short. Like I've always kind of had the mentality, at least, to play my own game, whether or not I had the full capacity and agency to do so. Um, and it really wasn't until I had some pretty actual or limitations. I was in a car wreck several years ago, and I was in a wheelchair for a bit and some other things, and I literally had some limitations, and I had to. Even if I wanted to play the games, I couldn't. Um,
Hmm.
and so it was at that point that I really started to kind of internalize within myself, like what games am I playing with myself? I say I like finding loopholes, and I say I like, doing this, that, and the other in the workspace. And while that's true, am I actually doing that with myself? And so the past several
Mm,
years have been all about really challenging myself, my own assumptions about myself, um, being real. I mean, and figuring out who I am authentically. And then rather than trying to necessarily find loopholes in the game of life, as we talk,
mhm.
um, I am trying to play my own game. But how do I put it? It's not about. I think when we say play our own game, it's easy to think that like, oh, somebody's playing Monopoly and I'm playing chess, or somebody's playing chess and I'm playing Uno, but we're still putting labels on the game itself. Um,
Mhm.
Sorry, my cat's meowing. I'm not sure you can hear him.
Oh, I can't, but
Okay.
I'm sure it's adorable.
Um, But one
Kitty
second.
friendly space. Just
Yeah,
saying.
I have three of them, so and two dogs. I have a lot of pets.
Oh,
But
fur baby friendly
yeah,
and kiddo friendly
that's
too.
true. No, I'm starting going about this in all of a convoluted way. I'm just trying to think of a good way to actually say it and get to the point. Um, it's a different mentality of what a game is and what you want to play at. What I was trying to get at earlier is that even when we say I'm playing my own game, it's still a game that we're thinking about in the ways that other people are going to play it. It's like I play my own mini game inside of the big game. It's like no, like I'm not paying the MMO and like, trying to get streaks or whatever. It's like I am playing a turn-based uh RPG strategy, like entirely different
Like
genre.
Mist.
Yeah.
Have you
You
played
know,
Mist?
I've played it like twice for a little bit, not super long.
Sorry, total side tangent, but this is Neuro Spicy Voices. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, like a point and click game, you're playing that versus like an
Yeah.
intensive RPG. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what you're saying?
Kind of, yeah. It's just like a different way to think about what a game is and how to play it. I'm playing the
Hmm.
game. Here we go. I think I finally figured it out. I'm playing the game more with myself than with society.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing your game on your terms. And yes, we have to, of course, function in this
Yeah.
world. And yeah, we're not saying we're against people functioning in the world, of course.
Yeah.
But authenticity, finding ourselves
Mm.
is really important
Yeah.
with business, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like when I found myself, when I found who I work best with,
Mhm.
the hours I work best, integrated the creative self back in where which I had been, side like I put it on a shelf for 10 years, um when I started integrating all of that back in, life was so much better.
Yeah.
Business was so much better. But anyway,
No, I think you really kind of hit it on the head there, um, because we are told so often, like to keep a professional hat on and a personal hat on, keep it separate. You
right.
know, our hobbies have to be completely distinct from work,
Mhm.
or we have to productize and commodify our hobbies and our creativity. And that's not entirely true at all, nor is it entirely false.
Right.
Uh, you know, cause like I said, with playing the internal game, I'm also incorporating a lot of stuff. Like I read extensively as a kid and teenager, and a young man. Then after I got in the military, I essentially stopped. It's not that I didn't enjoy it; I just didn't do it. I also
Right.
quit writing. I also quit doing just a lot of the creative stuff. When I
Right.
tried to come back and work that stuff in, I had been so used to trying to perform, to do things a certain way, that I was stopping myself from just having fun with it and being creative.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but um, our hobbies, the things that are creative and that inspire us, that a lot of us trying to work back in, they don't need to be completely separate from work, but they do need to be distinct in how we think about it. It's meant to not be I think that it shouldn't be a break from work, but like a recharging of the self. Because especially with entrepreneurs, your work self and your personal self, they're the one and the same. You're so passionate about building whatever business it is, right? So like for my case, I'm building a leadership guidance firm, right? Um, focus heavy on authentic leadership. Um, you know, Authenticity, I see it as regenerative. It creates better cultures, better communities. I'm also a writer in like fiction and fantasy and all that stuff. I'm not publishing anything right now. I will eventually, but I work
Neat.
on this world, and I take a lot of the stuff I'm exploring professionally, and I incorporate it into the fantasy stuff, and then it feeds back off of each other, right?
Yes.
And
Love that.
so I can rabbit hole on work, or I can rabbit hole on this fantasy world. Completely different things, absolutely completely different things, but they support each other, right?
Hmm.
And so that's something like they don't have to be completely separate. It doesn't necessarily have to be distinct. Excuse me. And the reason I kind of have that philosophy or thinking about it is because I personally think it's inauthentic and ridiculous to try and separate ourselves from ourselves when it comes to work. Um, I think it leads to burnout quicker. I think it
Yes.
leads to dissatisfaction, a lack of connection in the workplace or at home. I mean,
Yes.
how many people?
Masking.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And so I'm not saying it's easy, but if you can find a way to thread your passions and your hobbies and your work and yourself together in such a way that it supports each other rather than one gives you a break from the other, um, I think at least for
Hmm.
a large amount of people, it's a much more holistic way to be. So
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that so much. And I'm still even learning, I often say I only knew I was neurodivergent starting last year. So still trying, still finding
yeah,
myself and going back and realizing I was masking so much for so long
mhm,
and what that did to me. I mean, there were points where I let down the mask. It wasn't constant, but
yeah,
it's stressful,
it
you know?
is. Yeah, I mean too, because you have to have different masks for different environments.
Mhm.
Like one for my experience, I had to have one for home and one for school, and then
Mhm.
one for work, and there were elements of each mask that were the same from the other one. Like I'm not sure how you visualize it. Maybe the mouth of the mask was the same for two of them and different for the third one, or maybe the eyes were the same for all three of them. It's not about to
Yeah.
visualize, but in all aspects of ourselves, there's a section of our and all of our masks that we wear. There's an element of truth, of authenticity, of ourself. It's all a version, but we segment it out to make it more palatable or easier for other people to um, deal with.
Mm.
Now, I mean, that's to say, like I'm not sure if I'm allowed to curse on here, but
You can.
uh, you know, being your authentic self does not give you an excuse to be an asshole, to not be a nice person. Um,
Very
and,
true. 100,000,000%.
yeah. But
Mhm.
at the same time, you can set boundaries. You can set limitations for yourself, for others. Um,
Mhm.
yeah. But it's basically why keep switching masks and the energy it takes, the memory it takes to be like what mask does what.
Mhm.
I was talking with somebody recently who had a very interesting kind of issue going on. They're writing on Substack, and they're building something. They have some people they're working with, and one of their people was concerned about this person's writing because they thought it sounded a bit intense with the emotions. And this person was like, "Well, yeah, I feel this way." And it's like, so I was talking to him, and I said, "Okay, makes sense. Have your emotions, write what you want to write, but you know, you have to think people are going to read this, people are going to interact with you. You don't. What am I supposed to say? what the advice I gave them was basically write what you want to write, and then read through it without you reading it, and just go, okay, who does it sound like I'm angry towards or emotional
Mm.
towards? Because this individual is talking about their systems, the systems that we're all living under, and their frustration and all that stuff. And I was like, you know, if that's what you're authentically trying to represent, read through it. And does it sound like that, or does it sound like you're upset with a certain person or a certain segment of, society or a company, all that stuff? And because if you think about it, if that's not who or what you're actually emotional about, that's what it sounds like. You're not displaying yourself authentically, right? So I'm not sure if that makes sense. But I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
see.
like zooming out. Is that
Yeah,
kind of what you're saying? To zoom out,
yeah,
it's good to let out our feelings, but and to not mask, but when we post it, we do have to think about who's going to be reading it, and
no,
how they're going to interact. Is that kind of what you're saying?
kind of, because it's not about wearing a mask for the platforms as
Hmm.
much as making sure that at least the vast majority of who's going to be reading your content actually sees the intent. So
Yes. Okay. The
yeah,
clarity.
yeah, because it's like I'm sure being a therapist, like the color red elicits anger or other emotions like that. You don't really, from my knowledge, therapists don't typically paint their offices red, right? Um, but
Right.
so if you
Maybe
take that to
green or
like,
blue.
yeah, um, so like if you take that to like the mask thing, and I know we're doing a lot of visual imagery for like writing. Apologies for like the metaphor abundance of metaphors, but if you
It's
take a
fine.
mask and you're angry, right? So you paint your whole mask red.
Hmm.
Somebody sees that and they're like, "Oh God," and then that scare them. But if you just like no, like paint red around the eyes or paint red around you know the mouth or something like that, it signals you got something going on there, you got some emotions and all that stuff. But people are more like, oh, why is that little bit of red there? Why is that emotion there? And they're more drawn in to not just see what you're talking about, but share. Because there's a lot of people that are upset at systems, but people don't like feeling like they're a part of it or hopeless or all that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
So it's
Read
not
the
about,
room. Read the
yeah,
room.
it's not about masking yourself as much as making sure your message that you're trying
Empathy.
to deliver, yeah,
Yeah.
you want to make sure the message you're trying to deliver actually gets delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're kind with it. Like I teach with emotional regulation, and disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. This is not counseling. This does not constitute a therapeutic relationship. I'm just sharing a strategy. Okay. And I'm talking with our listeners. Okay. Emotional regulation, right? It's about keeping it even-ish, but
Hmm.
it's not about hiding emotion or being toxically positive. It's about let out your anger, but
Hmm.
don't hurt people with it. Like, oh, this is the perfect time to share my shirt. Okay, so it's reading Rambo,
I love it.
but it's not about violence. It's
Hmm.
LeVar Burton. He was
Yeah.
reading Rainbow, right? It's about letting out your emotion, not with violence, but letting it out and letting the world know. Like, I'm angry about some things. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to be snarky sometimes, but I'm not going to hurt people with it. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
is that kind of what you're saying?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Like I said, I know it's kind of convoluted metaphors, but that's the neurospicy part of me is that I think in these ways that it makes complete sense to me, but when I try to translate it out sometimes it seems like a jumbled mess. So
No, you do. You're like David Lynch with your writing. Do you know who David Lynch is?
name sounds familiar. You're talking about the comedian?
No, Twin Peaks. I love
Yeah,
Twin
yeah,
Peaks.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. I think you write in a way that, and I love it. It's like that because if you watch his stuff, he doesn't close the loop
Hmm.
immediately. And actually, on some of his stuff, he doesn't even close the loop at all. Like we're left wondering things. Your stuff is thought provoking. it's like it has this underlying tone of a message that we have to think about to come up with, um, to maybe sift it through to ourselves.
Exactly.
Kind of like amazing works. If you look at from different angles, you're going to see different things. I actually think your work is like that. And maybe you don't give, I'm always teaching about TLDRs.
Hmm.
Maybe sometimes it's best not to give them, let the audience figure it out. But maybe you give the TLDR about a different kind of view, like questions to keep the loop open. But I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like your writing. You're keeping the loop open for people to figure it out themselves, is what
That's
I'm seeing.
That actually brings me like an intense amount of joy because that's what I hope for actually. Um,
Okay.
because like I mentioned at the beginning, I see myself more as a guide, not a coach, because I don't see myself as having the answers. But if I can help you and get you to think more deeply about whatever, then and I can help you explore those questions and help you come up with the answer yourself. But yes, it is about trusting the reader, the client, whomever, to go to those depths and stick with it and explore it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I work best with people that are willing to put in the work, and not necessarily because I demand it, but because they see that as an investment in themselves. You know, it's a
Love
huge
that.
it's a huge undertaking to work on oneself, personally or professionally. That
Mm-hmm.
there's no denying that. And a lot of people want that quick answer, like how do I get to the next level? How do I get to the next level? And it's like, I feel you. Um, that
Let's
that
sit in the mid level, what is the
liminal,
word?
liminal space.
Liminal space. Yes.
Yep,
I love
yep,
that.
yep. Yeah, I actually, you'll probably like this concept. I wrote about this last year. It might be worth bringing back out. Um, I see growth, one that's personal, professional, and I say personal, professional, but really, I just think it's one and the same. Um, but growth as kind of like a river, a liminal river, right? And whether you're going up or down it to your destination, you're fighting against the flow or going with it. But either way, you're moving. As long as you're moving, you're going through it. Now you can't always continue to move. You have to rest. You pull off and get on the bank and you make a little campfire. The moment you're off on the bank, having a little, campfire, warm up, spend the night, you're not growing anymore. You're not. You're not necessarily stagnating, but you are not growing because you have to stop to pause, to rest, rejuvenate, take care of yourself, take stock of where you're at. But then you get back on it and you go forward back down the river
Ooh,
because growth is messy. It is uncomfortable. We don't like it. Um, and it can be dangerous, just like a river. But yeah, you have to keep going down the river to actually progress. Um,
I love
yeah.
that. I
So
love that so much. I can see some Canva visuals I might need to build for this concept. Might even add them in the video we have here. I love
sounds
this. It's like a
well,
game.
yeah.
I could see it.
I know. I was talking with somebody yesterday actually. We were talking about the change in games from the early 2000s to now and the focus, and the really rich, deep story, world building, experiential games. Granted, I'm not a huge gamer anymore, but they just don't seem to be coming out. Or if they are, um, they're very sporadic, or
Yes.
it's an overdone tropes and genres. And I think that's kind of what we're missing in a lot of our lives is just that depth to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. We're talking about, you know, Scott had taught me, I have quite a journey, but I I thought it was like tools and strategies, I guess, at first with building my business coaching business. I'd built the other business, the
Mhm.
therapy business, but then building this one was like a whole different thing.
Mhm.
And at first I thought I needed tools and strategies like, let's figure this out and get this going and get some clients. Well, Scott taught me. kind of what you're saying, the liminal space, like it's a journey.
Hmm.
It's first principles. And I think you're talking about first principles here, that the river, we have to pull off onto the side and have the campfire and do nothing for a while and let our brains and bodies rest, do some grounding techniques, eat some food, take a vacation, then get back in the river. Because while you're doing that other stuff in the back of your brain, stuff will work a little bit. Like
Hmm.
new ideas are going to pop out, and maybe put them on the shelf, because you need to rest, but they're going to come, you know.
Exactly.
And then when you get back in the river, you're going to be knocking things out, but then you need to rest again. Like it's not this like straight line.
No, it's not. No, it's not a straight line at all. And another thing too, yeah, because I use the straight line and hiking trail progression example a lot in my work. Um, it's not a straight line to the top. And do you want to be at the same peak as everybody else, or do you want to find your own peak? It might be 2,000 feet lower on a different ridge line, but it's yours.
Yeah.
It's a lot quieter, and
Yep.
it's a lot less traffic and trouble to get up there. You know
Yep. And you didn't step on everyone to get there.
exactly.
And there's no, drawing in the blue ocean theory, there's no like, what does Jake call them? Floppy dead fish all around.
Yep. Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's it. No, that's it's a good metaphor.
Anyway, I love this conversation. I love neuro spicy voices because we have fun. I'm having fun. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what else do you want to share with us? So what are you working on? Or are you in a campfire moment?
No, I mean, so campfire moment was definitely the weekend. I've been, part of the reason I went into entrepreneurship and left the 9 to 5 was because just some of my values got a bit more crystallized and certain things became more important to me. And of course, going into entrepreneurship was hard to hold to those values of basically like, shutting off at the end of the day and keeping time with my family. But past several months, it's gotten a lot easier. Um, and so, yeah, so it's my recharge time. I'm getting a lot better about, okay, I'm not thinking about work at all right now, and actually sticking to that. As far as what I'm working on right now, so I'm still kind of taking my processes and the way I've been mentoring, leading, coaching, teaching, all that stuff for the past, essentially 12, 15 years or so, and figuring out how, um, how I've done it, but like apps and all the rules that I had to work on it before, and really making it my own process and finding out how to communicate that in message format. Um, and it's because I've always been a very individual or needs an organization. So it's been an interesting process to try and remove all of that and then kind of reify it into its essence so I can then talk about it and incorporate it into my format versus just random anecdotes that talk about leadership. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm trying to get to where I can talk more targeted about my slash cultivars principles and how I do things and all that stuff.
Good.
And that's kind of like the big mental project I'm working on right now. Apart from that, connecting with people, peers, potential clients, and I will probably be holding some workshops in collaboration with another individual later this fall. I'm going to keep that kind of under wraps just because they're still working out some things on their end. But I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, might be holding some workshops this fall slash winter.
Neat.
And yeah, so and that's just
Sounds
kind of
great.
generally what's going on right now.
Yeah, that's really cool. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Um, well, again, I love the work you're doing. I think it's really thought provoking. It keeps our loops open so we can find the path for ourselves. I think that's great. And I don't know, do you want to tell us about your Substack or your website or both, or places
Yeah,
we can find you?
yeah, absolutely. Yes, I publish my newsletter through Substack. And I have two different segments I usually run. One is called Contour Lines, and that's just more anecdotal, stream of consciousness, whatever my mind is. It might be poetry that I find or I've written. It might be a video I saw and some anecdotes, conversations, spark some interest. They vary in length, but nothing big. Does I do that several times a week. Then I have longer ones called Compass Points, and those are those longer form, more in depth ones, like what you're talking about with creativity is the new commons. And I don't have a set schedule for how often I put those out anymore. I'm also starting to do live kind of coffee hour chats on Fridays. Just kind of, I'll have stuff to talk about from the week if people want to talk about different things. Just general, relaxed, open environment for that. So that's all on
Cool.
Substack. As far as I can also be reached on LinkedIn or my website, cultivarleadership.com. And that's where like I have a little bit more focused description of what I do and all that stuff as far as the work. Yeah, and we'll see how things go from there.
I love that. Very cool. Was there anything else you wanted to share with the listeners here?
I very much enjoyed the conversation. It's always fun to talk with somebody else that's like-minded, and so I just appreciate the conversation. I love getting to hear people's stories and seeing how they've kind of developed their own authenticity and what that looks like for them. So as far as sharing with your listeners, if they have a story that they want to talk about or anything like that, they're always more than welcome to reach out.
I love that.
Yeah.
Good.
So
So hanging out, talking about stories and that type of thing, and our kind of work stories, our business stories, that kind of thing.
yeah, that kind of thing. Whatever's led to growth and you, whatever whatever makes you feel authentic. And actually,
Mm,
I guess here's one like thing I can say.
sure.
Um, it's a path of authentic leadership, not a path to authentic leadership. Because the moment you say I am authentic and plant that flag in the ground of I'm authentic leader, it's not something you reach then you're done with. It's an ongoing process that you have to carry with you and embody as you go. So it's a path you walk. It's a path of, not a path to. Um,
Mm,
so that's it. I held a workshop earlier this year, and many people, when I was asking for feedback before I hosted it, they said, "Well, shouldn't it be a path to authentic leadership?" And I was like, "No, it's not a destination. It's a way of walking." So
hmm
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that really aligns both of our stories
Mm-hmm.
too, that's what we've been doing. We're on paths of authenticness and
Mm-hmm.
leadership. And you're right, 100% that we have to find ourselves along the way. But how do you find yourself? You got to sit with yourself. You got to
Mm-hmm.
try things.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so interesting. I love that.
Absolutely.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah. No, but yeah. But thank you again. It's been a pleasure to be on Neuro Spicy Voices with you.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your awesome insights. And thank you, listeners, Neuro Spicy Voices. Continue tuning in, and we'll keep talking about these things.